Good day. My name is Meredith Devonshire, and I currently work for Cigna Healthcare, a global health services and insurance company. My role is that of a Senior Health Promotion Manager for North Texas and Oklahoma. As a Senior HPM, I provide a strategic review of a client's or employer group's overall employee health and well-being programming. I've always looked at data, claims data, aggregate biometric data, health assessment data, etc. It's turned me into a bit of a data geek. Now, often in my role, I'm tasked with assessing the validity of the client's programming with regard to PPACA and other applicable laws and policies. Today, I want to talk a little bit about how DNA testing is available and what that has to do with the health and well-being of employees. How great would it be to have your DNA test results in the palm of your hand? What are the pros, cons, considerations? First, let me set the stage. What is DNA testing? Well, to better answer that question, I'm going to talk us through a short tutorial that's offered through the company 23andMe for any of its participants. It explains at a very basic level what DNA testing is and isn't. For example, genetic variants are differences in DNA between people, and some variants may increase the risk of developing certain health conditions. "23andMe is good to caution that not everyone with a risk variant will develop those health conditions. And it's also important to note that some variants are more common in certain ethnicities. Families share DNA, so having a family history of a condition can increase a person's risk. And let's not forget that our DNA isn't the only determinant of a person's risk for developing a condition. In fact, environmental and lifestyle factors play a part right alongside your DNA and ethnicity. Last year for Christmas, my mom surprised my brother and I with DNA ancestry kits from 23andMe. He and I both opted to pay more and get the health results component of the program as well. We both spit into a tube and sent off our saliva to be tested. 6 weeks later, we were emailed the results along with various reports. So, who is Meredith? According to this slide, Meredith Devonshire, that's me, is 43% French and German and 24% English, Irish, and United Kingdom. The rest of me is like Heinz 57 sauce, and I blame that on my mama, and she doesn't mind. One of the many benefits of using a service like 23andMe are the various options you can choose. In the case of my brother and I, we both chose to allow ourselves to be identified and to find DNA relatives. It just so happened that through this sharing, we discovered that I have a nephew whom we knew nothing about. You can imagine my brother's surprise when on his DNA relatives page, he discovered that he shared over 49% of DNA with Anthony King. Turns out my brother had a dalliance while in the Army, and in the case of Anthony, his mama went on to marry Mr. King, never knowing that Anthony's paternity was in question. Add to that, Anthony didn't know either until his bio dad, that'd be my brother David, found him. Gentlemen, you might want to keep this story in mind when considering getting yourself tested. Just saying. The DNA results, which are essentially in the palm of your hand, as long as you have a smartphone, not only tell you about your ancestry and possible DNA relatives, but 23andMe also shares wellness reports. Based on my results, I'm likely to consume more caffeine than others, I'm also more likely to be a light sleeper, and I'm predisposed to weigh more than average. See, Doc, it really is in my genes. The wellness reports delve more deeply into each of these aspects, like this example for caffeine, which provides an explanation for how caffeine works in your body. The DNA testing also provided a high-level genetic risk report. For instance, I'm now aware of a slightly increased risk of developing age-related macular degeneration. This prompted me to research and understand the types of macular degeneration and to learn what I could do to mitigate my risks. I also knew from extensive blood testing conducted after my first clot that I had inherited the gene variant Leiden factor V, which increases my risk of developing clots. What I didn't know was that I got it from both of my parents. In fact, this prompted my mother to have blood work drawn to assuage her concern that as she ages, she'll develop a thrombosis. It also prompted a new conversation with my own blood specialist, who agreed that we may need to intervene with the medication sooner rather than later. All good things to know, right? Well, maybe, maybe not. I consider myself an advocate for my own health. My grandfather calls me one smart cookie, but I digress. And I felt empowered having this information and being able to share it with my brother, parents, and children. But perhaps for some who aren't smart cookies, this information can be a bit overwhelming, cause worry, stress, and anxiety. 23andMe tries to support what might be new learning for an individual by providing information like what's on this slide. They offer education, information, and links to scientifically sound, well-researched references to keep the affected persons informed. It even offers some reassurance that in adapting my own lifestyle and other factors, I can mitigate my risks for the developing of a condition. Well, it was right for me. It enlightened me, empowered me, and educated me on my ancestry, gene variants, health risks, and in my family's case, our newfound relatives. But is it right for you? As with any testing or screening, it's always a good idea to do your research. Pros and cons come with every decision to see into your future, or in this case, also look into your past. And essentially that's what we're doing with these testing kits. I can see that many people would be uncomfortable with gleaning all of this information from a simple saliva test. And what do you do if you find you are at increased risk for a health issue? And that's why it's super important to have a primary care doctor that you know who knows you. She or he can also set you up with a genetic counselor who's been specifically trained in DNA and genomics. But is a consumer test, some costing upwards of $200, within everyone's grasp? No, but that's all right. We know that the Patient Portability and Affordable Care Act, or PPACA, specifically addresses the fact that certain populations are at a higher risk for certain diseases, and the testing for those individuals is to be covered at 100%. This includes tests like the BRCA or BRCA test. If detected, it indicates the likelihood of breast cancer. It also includes genetic counseling. That means that anyone here with any type of health insurance can request specific screening tests from their physician covered at 100% and with no out-of-pocket costs. NPR.org reminds us to keep these things in mind if you're considering genetic testing to identify breast cancer risk. Please note this is specific to the 23andMe testing regimen. They suggest the 23andMe test only looks for 3 variants in 2 so-called breast cancer genes that are most commonly found in Jewish women of Eastern European descent, so that test's most useful for those women. Be aware, even if you learn you don't have one of those variants, you could still have one of thousands of other genetic variants not included in the test that put you at a higher risk for breast and ovarian cancer. If you have family history of breast and ovarian cancer, talk to your doctor about getting more extensive genetic testing. Professionally, I see the burgeoning area of genomics as exciting for public health professionals. I can see how having access to the results of DNA tests at an aggregate level could allow for more effective community and population-based health programming pertaining to the results of the tests, prevention programs, and even genetic counseling. Additionally, I can see the area of genetic counseling as a career opportunity for those with a penchant for health education and thorough knowledge of genetics. Perhaps someone here will become intrigued by the concept of having your DNA test results as close as the smartphone in your hand and want to become a genetic counselor. Thank you.